I think allowing in America, in particular, wild innovation, wild risk-taking is good, but then on the backside of that, there should be a strong expectation. And I think role models help a lot. Warren Buffett, in very different industry, very different skill set. He's always been a role model and was the one who even when I was still building the fortune said, okay, your mom is right, and here's some books you should read, Carnegie, Gospel of Wealth, the history of what Rockefeller did, because this will be an important, as important a measure of your impact as making the money.
Yeah, I think that's such a brilliant lesson and wonderful one to pass on. What I think it was Trump who mentioned recently that you'd asked to see him to have a discussion. Did that meeting ever happen?
Yeah, I had a very long and actually very impressive dinner in terms of he asked good questions. I talked about over 10 million people are alive because of U.S. generosity with HIV medicines, going back to President Bush in 2003. And, I encouraged him to keep that as a priority and to accelerate innovation. There's an idea that you might be able to cure AIDS that we're working on, and he could help accelerate that. I talked about polio eradication and how his leadership and the U.S. government resources are very important there. And, I'm sure everybody's trying to meet with him. The fact he gave me that long period of time was actually pretty thoughtful in his questions. Somebody may come along later and tell him to cut that money, but I make the argument as best I can that, the moral purpose of the U.S. and how we're thought of and, the fact that a cure is on its way, that's worthwhile. So this administration is in charge and, trying to help them. They're willing to cancel old things, some of which should maybe be canceled, some of which shouldn't. So they're, helping direct them so they'll use their open-mindedness to do different things and try and make that come out well. I think that's worth trying.
Yeah. What do you see as the moral purpose of the United States in the way you mentioned it just now?
Well, we've been the shining light of not only being a democracy ourselves and, having political opponents respect each other and work well together, but also, saying that even though we're in this very powerful position, we won't abuse that position.